Yeah, so if you are anything like me and you like you like a certain style of music while you're down at the beach, you got a couple of drinks in hand, I think that's definitely what this band is going for. They're called the Beach Bums, so it is appropriately named. You leaned over. Yeah, and if Seymour Butts is watching, happy birthday to you. Love it. Yeah, you can't bring me down, y'all. I appreciate that. Hey, Rana Paramore, Rana Tallybob. How are you guys doing? Welcome to Devin Song Reviews. Yeah, so like I was saying before, like this song just has that really good beach vibe to it. I don't know how to exactly explain what a beach vibe is, but I think you know it, and I think this is what that is. It is light music that I could see. I would love to see this, go into a bar at the beach, and I could just see a band like this playing and people dancing and having a good time. Could also just relax to this, sitting on the beach. Yeah, but I like the lyrics are pretty simple and they work with the music pretty well. And there's not a whole lot going on here, but what is going on is intentional and it works together. What's good, John McCain? And yes, I am reviewing songs. How's my day going so far? It's going really, really well. I'm really happy to be back doing this show. And there's a new format today that we're testing out, and we are loading up to do this on a weekly basis moving forward. So one thing I did notice about this song, just as a little bit of a critique, is there is a little bit more going on the left side than there is on the right, so there's a little bit of an imbalance. It's not too noticeable unless you're wearing some headphones like I am, and it's nothing bad, but it's just something to keep in mind when you are doing your mix to try to get an even mix on each side. But it also, I think it works for this because, yeah, freaking cool song. And I think the imbalance actually works a little bit here. I know it's not exactly what you're supposed to do, but I think there's nothing wrong with it on this song because it does make me feel like I'm sitting watching a live band play this song down at the beach. And so in that setting, you're not going to have a perfect mix of music. You're going to have wherever that lead guitarist is. So in this case, they have it panned to the left a little bit. If you're sitting there in front of a stage, it's obviously going to have some different pannings going on. Wherever that lead guitarist is standing and playing is where you're going to hear a little bit more of it, rather than just over the main PA speaker. So, but anyways, that was the Beach Bums with a song called Down to Mexico. And I think it was a really cool song. Really happy that somebody submitted that. So for those that don't know, what I do is I do song reviews. So what we're listening for is a few different things. We are listening to the songwriting itself. So I'm listening to the lyrics and how the song is arranged. We're also listening to instrumentation, how well instruments were recorded, how well they're working together. And then we're also listening for and reviewing the mix on the song So it's more of the technical things. The whole purpose behind this is I'm an independent musician with experience producing, recording, writing, doing all the things myself. And so what I'm trying to do is give back to independent musicians, give them a platform to be heard by more people that, y'all might not ever have heard this unless you were hanging out with me and heard it here. So not only that, but also just giving some advice and some critiques on how we can get better together. So if you're an independent musician, or if you know of an independent musician that could benefit from doing this, all they have to go to my bio and fill out the form for a song submission, and that way I can queue it up and listen to it here. Dreamers Are Believers by Spoken Life.
Some people say that this road we seek has many ups and downs. Are we willing to sacrifice and lay it all on the line? The unknown.
What's up, Sinclair?
The downfall of us all.
Good to see you.
And the risk could be too much to take. 'Cause I'm still standing here today. Don't wake me up from this dream. I know times have changed, but I'm not ready to give up on this now. It's hard for me to let
Hey,
go.
Tab IS. Welcome.
And when I'm traveling the world, will you be there waiting for me?
Okay, so far I really like the vibe of the song. His vocals are really cool. I like them. I'm hearing a little bit of some timing issues. Just making sure that your timing is very cohesive. It doesn't sound like, usually you want to make sure that you're recording to a click track, and not saying that he wasn't doing that here, but there could have been some sort of latency that was happening. There's a little bit of a delay, and so not everything is super cohesive. I feel like the drums are a little too far back. They're probably electronic drums. I don't think they're live drums, but that's okay. They should be brought up a little bit. When the drums came in, I would have liked to hear the sound go up. It would have just brought it more to life. But I think this song is really good. Hey, Mark Wrigglesworth. Welcome to an awesome hang with awesome people. So that was a really cool effect that I use a lot. They took some sort of sound and sort of did a reverse on it to where it trails up into something. And whereas I like that technique a lot, I think just right there in that instance, it was the volume of that part was louder, and then when it hit into that louder part, it wasn't loud enough. So always make sure that you are checking how loud things are and make sure that they're staying at the same pace. This is Spoken Life. The song is called Dreamers Are Believers. Hey, Logan Roberts. Welcome. Yeah, so again, Spoken Life with Dreamers Are Believers. And I really, really enjoyed that song. Just production-wise, there's a few things that can be worked on there. Like I said, one of the things was the timing. It sounded like some things weren't perfectly cohesive. Some things were out of time. And so some of the hits and some of the lyrics weren't hitting on time, and it's just noticeable. You want that to be more comfortable. You want that to flow. Not a big deal. Pretty easy to fix. And then on top of that, the drums that came in sounded off. Again, probably just, not real drums, but just electronic drums. Nothing wrong with doing that. But when you do that, you need to make sure that the sound works with everything else. What happens with electronic drums is they're technically perfect. You don't have to do a whole lot with them. All you have to do is make sure that they fit in with the rest of the instruments as you're adding them. And this is a band called Misty Blue, and with a song called Mountain Times. This is a sort of an indie folk band or duo, something like that. But this was submitted, and I've already listened to it once, but let's listen to it again. I'll share some thoughts on it.
They found me another mountain. I knew it was set in the letter I wrote to you. I hope we float to a different island. Your voice and one more smile, the letter said. I know, so I'll wait for you alone. They send me a distant letter, I write to you in a different kind of spring.
So one of the things I like about indie folk music is just the relaxed vibe to it. It doesn't necessarily get me pumped up and excited, but it's more about the music. Typically with this sort of indie folk, what you're listening to is very simplistic instrumentation with more of a highlight on some vocals that aren't too in your face. They're usually a little bit more relaxed, which I think they check the boxes on this as a good genre song. Hey, John Bryan Music. Thanks for coming by.
I'm found on another mountain. I climbed up for
So much like, the first song was a very beach feel. It made me think of sitting there at the beach and what comes along with that. This one, named Mountain Times, gives me more of a feeling of maybe sitting by a campfire, sitting in the mountains somewhere, and just sort of listening to somebody sit there with me and sing this. And just even the way everything is mixed here is done well. It just doesn't need a whole lot. Sounds like a slide guitar. I wouldn't hate to hear that come up. It's sort of a unique sound to the rest of the song. I would have brought that forward. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Straight Bennett. Hey, how are you? Thank you for coming by.
I just wanna die.
So here's another one where we have an imbalanced mix, if you want to call it that. The left and right panning is not coming completely even, which is, again, sort of a genre-specific thing here. I wouldn't expect it to be perfect. I think indie folk needs to be a little less perfect and just needs to be about the instrumentation and the vocals, and they are obviously doing a great job of that. Yeah, so that was a band called Misty Blue, The song is called Mountain Times. Yeah, and just to touch on the imbalance mix a little bit more, we kind of just talked about this in the beginning, but I think it applies here as well. And trying to make that what's going on in my head makes sense. So depending on the genre and mixing techniques, there's going to be some differences, but typically what you want is you want an even mix on left and right. That's how you get a very clean, produced sounding song in your mix. However, with something like indie folk, you can throw out the rule book a little bit. And you can do that with anything. I mean, typically what I'm talking about is basic principles when it comes to the technicality of mixing and producing. But rules are meant to be broken, and there's nothing that says you have to do it the same way every time. In this case, there was a bit more on the left at times, and there was a bit more on the right at times. And the only real difference I would have made is that slide guitar, or whatever that lead was that came in, was still like to the left. I would have moved it to the right because there was some space on the right that, rather than turning up the volume, because I mentioned during the song that I would have liked to hear that brought forward some, instead of just raising the volume on it, you can actually just find a space where there's not a whole lot going on, move your instrument to that space, and you will have what is called perceived volume, to where it's not just turning up the volume, you're finding space, and therefore it sounds louder just because it's in a space that's not competing with other instruments. So something to keep in mind when you are in the mixing process: listen for the balance from left to right and find those spacings where something's not, and try to go fill it in just to create that perceived volume. So again, that was a really good song. It was called Mountain Times by a band called Misty Blues. We are going to have the infamous Michael Witt come on and talk to us about some resources for independent musicians. Today we're talking about writing artist bios and why it's important, and some tips on how to do it the right way. And so Michael is going to share some of that with us. And so each week we are going to have somebody come on and give, we're going to do a little bit of an interview for a resource that would be beneficial to any independent musicians that want to tune in and learn something today. We're going to do that. And then later on in the show, or when Michael's done, we are going to listen to some more music for anybody that's here and wants me to review their stuff. That's where we'll do that. After that, we'll have a band called New Haven come on, and they have a new single that's releasing tomorrow. And so we're going to talk to them about who they are, what their writing process looks like, and give us some information on their new release. So each week we'll have some resources, and we'll have an artist that has a new release coming out. So a lot of cool stuff in this new format, and I'm really excited about it, but we're still going to stick to doing reviews. But I want this to be a couple of hours each week where you can find new music. Maybe you find your new favorite band, but I also want to give you some resources, not only in the review format, but something that you can take away and get better as an independent musician this week, and also get to hear something that hasn't released yet that's about to this week. So it's really exciting stuff. But so Michael is going to be here in just a few minutes, and so before he is here, I'm going to play one of his songs, because if you don't know Michael Witt, you need to go check this out. This dude is amazing. He has some really cool stuff going on that we're going to talk about, but he is a good friend of mine. And I want you to hear him before he comes on, just so you know what we're talking about. So this is one of Michael Witt's newest songs, called Feather in a Hurricane. And check it out.
You cannot bottle the wind. You cannot package the flowing river.
Don't say to complicate the moment.
Hey, Becca Loves You 87. Good to see you. Welcome to a fun hangout.
You You can have everything you want.
So one of the things I like about this song that Michael Witt, he did this intentionally, but if you listen carefully, this low end that's coming in with the kick, he has it almost over compressed. He has a very fast attack on the compression, and so what that means is that right up front, you can hear it kind of, it hits and then it fades in, and so that's a really cool compression technique to give it a pumping motion, and so when used right and used sparingly, it can just add something really cool to the dynamics of the song. And understanding how compression works allows you to do fun stuff like that. So, fantastic example of using compression as an effect. And Michael Witt is here. What's up, man?
When everything is crumbling down and the times are changing, likeness will carry the crown.
All right, Michael, as soon as this song's done, I'm going to go ahead and send your guest request. Let's get you on. Red Crayon, hey, how are you?
When everything is coming back around and the storm's on its way, well, you know you can dance with the sound of the thunder.
Boogs the Boogie says this is smooth. Sure is smooth. Smooth with just a little bit of funk thrown in there. Yeah, so this is Michael Witt, who is about to hop in with me. And Michael, I'll let you give a little info, but Lucy War is apparently the female vocal that you use here. So I guess there was a little bit of a collaboration that happened there. But yeah, this is Michael Witt. And there he is. What's up, man?
Hey, dude. There we go.
Yeah, there he is.
Hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Man, it's going pretty good. We're plugging away. I'm really excited about this new format. Really happy that you agreed to be my guinea pig and be the first one to come on here. And you know what I want is for this to be a place that a couple hours once a week, independent musicians, or maybe not even independent musicians, can just come find new music, but also get some resources and learn things about the industry and things that they can do to get better at their craft. And so I'm really excited that you agreed to come on here. For those that don't know, like I said before, Michael Witt is this awesome dude, great musician, has some really cool stuff going on. I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit because I want you to have a platform to talk about your awesome journey that you're on right now. But Michael and I have known each other for, probably about a year now, I guess. And Michael is somebody who does a great job writing content. And so he wrote some content on my last release, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And so, this is something that he's really good at and understands. And so wanted to have Michael, wanted you to have be able to come on here and give some information to anybody that's watching on really why writing your artist bio is so important, and maybe some tips on what they can do. So so real quick, give me if you want to kind of introduce yourself. I try to tee you up there as good as I can, but you're welcome to introduce yourselves to anybody that's watching.
Cool. Yeah. Well, for those who don't know me, I'm Michael Witt. I'm a guitar slinging, magic making, freak folk artist in Nashville. that's the pitch. That's the elevator pitch. That's the one sentence bio that I've come up with for myself. So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm a musician. I'm a writer. I'm just like a fucking creative mess, and that kind of accurately describes my life 24/7.
Yeah. So in a recap, you're a true musician, is what you're saying.
I mean, what I guess if a true musician is just somebody who like fucking loves making music and wants to do it all the time at the expense of like social interaction and like finances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you fit the perfect mold of an independent musician, somebody who is working very hard, doing a lot of it yourself, just all the different things. And but you've learned some things along the way, so happy to have you come in and talk about it. So let's jump into it. So we're talking about artist bios. So first question right off the bat is, why do artists need a bio?
I feel like there's a couple different ways to answer a lot of questions that have to do with artist bios and anything within the music industry. So I'll like do my best to walk the line. From a marketing perspective, an artist needs a bio because people need to know who and what your thing is, like who you are, what makes you unique, and like you need a compelling reason to get people to pay attention to you. And a bio is like one way of doing that. That has a bio is really useful in terms of like press and websites and wherever there's written content. That's what a bio is good for. Now, like to be a little bit more magical about it, really like a bio is just one distillation of your story, the like story that you're actively writing. And like the way that you live can essentially act as a bio, but you still have to have it manifested in mediums that people can interact with on their own time, like videos or written, whatever. So it's very important that you give people as much as you can to interact with and latch onto and identify with. Like if you want to connect with people as an artist, you have to give people something to connect to. You have to like give people something to bite into, and a good bio gives people something to really bite into.
For sure. Yeah. So, so it's the first, sometimes the first impression to a musician, right? So, there's so much music out there. There's so many artists. You just like, I'm looking, I've got Spotify pulled up right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And when somebody submits some music, I'll hit the play button, but I'm also going to that bio and I'm checking it out because I want to know about them. Right.
What's their deal? Like, where are you from? Like, what's your deal? What is your, like, and I mean, like, I think the bio writing game, or I guess the type of, like, industry way that bios are written has gotten very stale. And, like, something that I've realized is that, like, Spotify and these streaming platforms and social media has, to some degree, sort of made it feel like the process of releasing music is a little bit more democratized. Like we've kind of moved away slightly from our reliance on major labels to like do everything. But even in the areas where we have been able to move away from like directly relying on the major labels, we've maintained the major label mindset. So like so many indie musicians have these bios that are so boring and like don't really tell me anything. And it's not like their fault. It's just like that's the way that bios are written.
Right.
And like it's an opportunity it's just another part of the freaking art. Like you can manifest your artistic like creative weirdness in every single aspect of your your music career, your persona. Like your press kit can be as weird as you want it to be. Your bio can be as weird as you want it to be.
Yeah, for real. It's so what you're saying there is it's just part of the process. Your music speaks for yourself, but a piece of that is your artist bio is going to speak as well. And so you kind of hinted on there. One of the questions here would it's kind of how should the bio sound? One of the things is should it be first person or should it be third person? I think that's a good question to ask, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But I think it goes a little bit farther than that. Is if you're a fun, pop punk band, should your bio be super serious and to the point, or should it be part of your personality as a band? And if you're an indie folk duo, should it be super goofy when, so talk a little bit about that. One is like, should it be in, I think that's a good question. First person or third person, because I see that's typically the two directions to go. And how does that play into, using that for your personality?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a pretty good observation, because it's like, it depends. And I think it both can be done very well. I used to write all of my stuff in third person, because I write it myself because I can't really, you got to do stuff yourself, save money. So I would do the like Michael Witt is a this and a that and the other. And there's this like music marketing agency called Burstimo that is like they're just very like in the box guru kind of whatever, and they give good advice. But like I really followed their advice on bio writing for a long time, and so I just like use the same type of language, I use the same type of like structure and formula, and then it checked all the boxes and it was professional, but it wasn't me. And one day a couple months ago, when I was trying to like revamp my website to prepare for like all of this like new music and this new aesthetic, this like mushroom hippie cowboy thing that I'm doing now, which is actually who I am, I was like sitting here trying to rewrite my bio, and I was like, how am I gonna like make it? And I was like, you know what? Let me just erase the whole thing and write exactly what I'm thinking. And so, now I feel like the bio that's on my website, the long one, is very me, and it still gives the information that bios are supposed to give in terms of like where I'm from, where I'm currently living, like when I started music, previous projects, who I sound like that kind of thing. Those kind of things are in there, but the tone is me. So like, I think it just depends. Like you said, a pop punk band who does like really fun, kind of goofy, more shenanigan type of music, like it would probably make a lot of sense for them to do a first person, like we are this type of band and here's what we do and here's where we've been. A more like type of confessional, singer songwriter, like, Noah Gunderson or something is going to have a very austere, like Noah Gunderson is a this and that and the other. That used to really speak to me. Like that type of thing used to really, really attract me. And it doesn't quite so much anymore. So I just like, I don't know. It's like, there's never one way to do things. And I just think it kind of depends on your, like what your thing is, like what's your thing and how can you speak to it. And like, that's why I think it's important for, if you're not a writer yourself, I think it's important to like get help with the bio writing, but then like this is where it's the job of the bio writer to actually put in the effort and the attention to like figure out what the vibe is, what's the right vibe for the thing. Because like in terms of first person specifically, I think that I see a lot of artists do first person bios in a way that definitely feels like they just wrote it themselves, but not in the best way. It feels like they wrote it themselves very hastily. Like it's just like, I need a bio, so I'm just going to write this real quick. Like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm this. And it's like, this doesn't quite fit your vibe. And so it's almost like if you're going to do a first person bio, you need to go all the way in and like fully do a first person bio, not just a very hasty, like I did, like, this is me, I make this type of music, hope you check it out, hope you like it. Like if that's your Spotify bio, you're probably leaving a lot on the table. And it's like, dig deeper and like fully fucking go into it. Like I make music for neurotic fucking ADHD. Like go way in if you're going to do the first person thing, because it's like, I don't know, at least my journey, like this is what I've had to learn. Like when I thought that I was doing something, I then realized like, oh, I'm doing like 10% of it, not 100%. You know what I mean? I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
What I do.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had noticed recently with an artist that came on here to have their song reviewed, and we have talked offline, and we're kind of working together in the background now, which is really cool. But one of the things I noticed was on his Spotify bio, it was like a one sentence of like, it came off as like, I don't care. And it was almost like, hey, my personality is I'm kind of funny like that, and I don't take things too seriously. So I could tell that's what he was trying to get across. The problem with that is that his music is not that way. His music is emotional. His music is about some deep emotions that are not funny.
Right.
And so if you're trying to be funny, it's not matching up with the music if it's not fun music.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think you answered it well. It's like, should it be first person or third person? I think third person was like the standard. Like that was how everybody was writing content on the internet when you want to sound professional. Mm-hmm. And there's a place for that, but it's not all the time. And so it sounds like a cop out when you're like, yeah, it just depends, but it really does, right? It's not one way or the other all the time.
Right. Well, and I think like even in the case of somebody who makes like very confessional, very weighty, indie like type of singer-songwriter music, if their personality is funny, there's a way to merge those two things. That's where it's like the responsibility of like both the artist and whoever's doing the writing, whether it's the artist themselves or if it's like another writer. Like they've got to actually put effort in, because I think that there are some really good examples of artists. Like Noah Kahan is an example. If anybody's familiar with Noah Kahan, he's like kind of indie folk pop folk. And a lot of his songs touch on very weighty emotional subjects, depression, isolation. But he himself is very funny. So like on his social media, he's able to like talk about like, this new song is about the breakdown that I had at a fucking gas station, but like, here's why it's kind of funny. So there's a way to do it. It just requires a little bit of attention. That's kind of the thing that I've noticed, is like, if you just put a little bit of attention and just like, kind of don't just rush to get the first thing that feels like it would be the industry standard out. Like just sit for a minute and like just allow the vibe to fill your head, and you might be a little bit more inclined to like express you rather than express what you think the industry wants you to express.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the takeaway there is no matter what, phoning it in is just not an option anymore.
Right.
If you want people to stick around, you have to give them more. And like I can appreciate people having fun in music because
totally.
We talked about this a little bit on your live last night. You were just having a ball. Like you were fun and you were happy, and it's not always the case. It's not always fun making music. Right. Sometimes it's not difficult stuff, but you can have a good time and have fun with your music, but you can't phone it in. You still have to create, you can't just go start recording a song and be like, oh, I'm not even going to mix it because I'm carefree and this is a fun song and it doesn't have to be produced well. Like, no, we all know that that's not the case. You have to give the effort because people are listening for the effort. And when they're going to look at your bio, if you're phoning it in, they're not going to take you seriously as a musician. Is that a fair thing to say?
Jerry Garcia is the ultimate example for me of just about fucking everything. He obviously has issues, but like in terms of the way that I'm approaching music, he's been the biggest influence because like I can't think of a better example of somebody who was at the same time very like laid back and very like, we're here to have fun and we're here to play music, and like we're not here to sweat every little detail in a way that makes us and everybody miserable. But he also put so much care into the music and in giving people an experience, so that it's like the laid back attitude doesn't really, it's not like you're laid back in this, it's like there's a difference between being laid back to the point where it feels like you don't care,
Right.
You said that earlier. And I think that there's just kind of this idea, especially on TikTok, that there was ever a day where musicians could just kind of like roll out of bed and just like kind of in total like shrouded in complete obscurity and mystery, just like make music and float it out into the ether, and then suddenly have millions of people listening to it. Like that never happened. The Beatles made how many fucking movies? Like musicians have always been public figures. Like musicians have always been these kind of like weird installments in society. Like just I like to think of an example, like I like to think of a traveling bard, and this is like not necessarily a historicized example. This is kind of like an anecdote, like a mythologized example, but to me it's like I like to think of a bard, like a traveling bard. I don't think that first of all, like they had to be good. Like if a bard sucked, people wouldn't want them around. They would just say, get out of the tavern, nobody wants you here. But if they were really good, and then if they were able to like capture people's attention in more ways than just music, if they dressed in a weird way, if they spoke weirdly, if they told weird stories, if they were this weird, like they weren't always around, but when they came around, they really gave people something to remember. Like that, I feel like that's just always been the case. And there's just this idea, and like the word entitlement gets thrown around in a way that kind of muddies the water a little bit because of the emotional charge that that word carries at this point. But like basically it's just, we as artists can't expect people to give a shit without giving more of a shit than we want them to. You know what I mean? Like the phrase that I think encapsulates what I'm trying to say is you have to give people something. Like you have to give people something to get excited about, something to connect with, and something to remember. That's basically it.
Very, very true. So, so what kind of information is important to put in a bio? So, you know, just, we talked about the why, you know, why it's important to have one, but let's say I'm sitting down and I'm going to rewrite my bio today. So, and that's kind of what I want here is I want everybody listening to this. I want you to think about, how's your bio look? Can it be better? But if we're sitting down, we're going to redo it right now. What is some of the information that needs to be in the bio?
This first one's going to sound like an asshole answer, but it's for real. Your name. Don't forget to tell people your freaking name. Especially, by the way, this isn't exactly bio stuff, but it's bio adjacent. If you're playing live, man, tell people your name. Mm-hmm. Like, introduce yourself when you're behind the microphone. Don't just assume everybody there knows your name. So obviously your name. Your name, the type of music you make, like, and that doesn't have to be like indie folk. You can get weird with the description. Like
that's a good quote from this. Get weird with the description. I like
exactly. It. Get weird with the description. Give people something to remember you. Like, so the type of music you make, though, I think it's always a good idea to like give people some point of comparison. So like if you like this artist, you might like my music.
Right.
So I usually like to phrase that as like, I don't know. I make the kind of phrase that I've landed on for Rose Smoking Flower Boy, which is the current album that I'm working on, is it's like 100% organic, certified fair trade, good cosmic hip freak folk music inspired by Devin Banhart and Joni Mitchell and Jerry Garcia. Like just that sentence alone gives people a very good idea of what to expect.
Right.
And like people can then decide when I say that, it's organic, certified, fair trade, good cosmic hippie shit. Think of Joni Mitchell and Jerry Garcia had a baby that ended up being Hozier. Like that immediately gives people a lot of things to latch onto. And from then they can decide that doesn't sound very interesting to me and move on. Or, right. Oh yeah, that's very interesting to me. Let me give it a listen. So name, obviously, type of music you make, some point of comparison to other artists. I think it's important to include where you are. So, I usually kind of talk about just very briefly, like, from Texas, currently in Nashville, like just a very brief backstory on like where I came from and where I'm currently at. And then I also think it's helpful, at least in the longer bio, and we can get into this in a minute. In the longer form bio, I think that it's cool to like take the first paragraph to include all that information. That way, if somebody just wants the headlines, they get the headlines. But then you go into your backstory a little bit, just like this is where I started making music. When the artist, their first project sounded like this, inspired by this. Then they moved on to this, and now they're doing this, and this is their next project. So like, just a little bit of a bullet point description of like the path that the artist has taken up to this point. And then I think it's also important to include what is the artist currently doing? Like, what are they doing right now? That way, you know, by the time if somebody reads all the way to the end of the bio and they're still in, then giving them an idea of what you're working on now can just get them excited about something. So just like they're working on an album, or they're currently booking a tour, or they're fresh off an album and they're resting. You know what I mean? Like whatever it might be, just tell people what you're working on.
All right, cool. So yeah, I totally agree. One of the things that that I do when I'm doing these song reviews is I don't like, genres are weird, right? Like very few bands can just say I am this genre. Like there are some staples, but genres are so fluid now, and so it's hard to define what your genre is, but it's also important. It's important to know what sort of genre adjacent, wherever you are. And so, like you said, giving some examples of artists that maybe have inspired you, or you sound, you know, this is where I get my inspiration from, this is the sound I'm going for, or these are the people you can compare me to, takes away that need to define what the genre is, but it gives people an idea of what you're doing. Because if I'm going to go look at some music, you know, I want to put some genres sort of together, because you know, if you don't like hip hop, you know, you're not going to sit here and listen to hip hop on this show. So I do try to, you know, keep up with what genres are these bands in. So a lot of bios don't have anything about what they consider the music they're making to be.
Yeah,
and it seems a little problematic.
That's a good point. It's like, it's just important to give people, like, people are more likely to relate and to be willing to like try a new thing out if they have some idea of what to expect based on their previous experience. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm a big fan of like, give the genre, but like get weird with it. You know what I mean? Like put a few descriptors of you and then say you rock. You know what I mean? But you know, I think that like freaking every musician, it's just like a trope at this point that like if you ask a musician or an indie musician what type of genre they are, they're not going to know what to say because they don't like labels and they don't really fit into one genre. And that's everybody. Okay.
Yeah. Labels aren't cool, right?
That's right. That doesn't like, that's not a unique perspective. And it's like, I understand the impulse to say that because I've been there too. I find myself going, well, shit, I don't really know. But like, just say, just like, what's the best answer? It's kind of like an example of like, you know what people are asking, man. You know, it's like if somebody asks you what genre of music you make or what kind of music you make on the street, and you sit there for 30 seconds and say, oh, well, it's like this, but it's kind of not this. And it's like folk, but it's not. You've lost them. Give them just something. Just give it's indie folk, but it's like indie folk, blah, 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 blah. Like just give them one point of reference, a very boiled down genre, and then you can expand for a sentence. And then if they want to know more, you can tell them more. You don't have to give the whole like, I don't fit into a genre type thing right off the bat. Right. They will decide that people will decide. Listeners of music will say that for you. They will say for you, man, this is really interesting. I don't really know what to call it. You don't have to do that, you know? So
let me give you a good example real quick. So a band had submitted some music for me to play. It was the first one that I opened with on today's show. They are a band called the Beach Bums. Okay. So right off the bat, you kind of know what to expect, right? And so their song was very beach feeling, but their bio, I'm gonna read a few lines to you real quick. Sure. Starts off with, when life hands you coconuts, make rum. Good times and fresh vibes. That's all it takes to make music. The Beach Bums bring the fun from the stage to the studio, creating lyrics and melodies that are best served with a slice of key lime pie and Malibu rum.
That's pretty great.
So does that not put you in the setting of, you know exactly what to expect, but it also helps you understand so much about what that music's what it's supposed to evoke emotionally in you? Is their whole goal is to make you feel like you are on the beach with a drink in hand and just listening to their music. So I felt like that was a really good example of doing it right.
It is. The only thing I would add to that is just like a 1 or 2 word thing on what the music actually is. Cause like, it's like, okay, I could imagine Kenny Chesney or Jimmy Buffett or like Bob Marley. Like I can imagine 3 different things. So if like literally, if they just put in the word country or surf rock or reggae
Yeah,
one
yeah.
word, and that would immediately make that's a perfect elevator pitch. Like,
Yeah,
it
but
lets
it's
you know
also a
exactly.
good example of if you can't define your genre, there's still a way of explaining what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
All right, so yeah, we've covered some cool stuff here. So let's talk about the length of a bio. So
Sure.
we know that so I'm in digital marketing and I understand how content is consumed on the internet. But we see this in TikTok. We understand 7-second videos do better than 30-second videos. We know people's attention spans are short. From a digital marketing aspect, when content goes on a website, I'm trying to explain that people don't read content, they scan it. And so the way that you put your content on a web page really, really matters. If it's all one paragraph, people don't make it very far. If you can break it up, if you can add a few bullet points, people will just scan
sentences,
it.
bold
Yeah.
the important sentences, like underline the important things, like give people a visual reference. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And so when it comes to bios, so give me an idea of, and I'm sure it does, just like we said before, it's a little bit of a cop out to say, well, it probably depends, but I know it does. But length of a bio. So talk a little bit about that. Maybe is there a point of being not enough? Is there a point of being too much? What is enough without overdoing it? What are your thoughts on length of a bio?
Yeah, I think that I like to have multiple options. This is a little bit of my compulsive patterns, and just like my compulsive need to be thorough. So I always, when I'm doing stuff for myself, I like to have multiple tiers. And like when I wrote the song write up for We Just Sink, I tried to deliver it up for We Just Sink. I tried to deliver it in a way that, like, if you only wanted one paragraph, you could just take the first paragraph, and if you wanted the whole thing. So I think like 500 words is a really good, like, comprehensive, like, that is the way that you can get all of the stuff in. You can get weird with it. You can go into detail. Like, you can really give people the meat and potatoes of who you are and what you do, in 500 words. Now, I think it's also important to either format that 500 words so that, like on my website, on the front page, I've got a big fat bio. And I probably need to go back and like implement some of this stuff to make it a little bit more reader friendly and a little bit more like pitch friendly, I guess, because you can format it in a way that like all of the important stuff is in the first paragraph. That way, if like people are willing to read the first paragraph but not the rest, then they've still gotten the point. You know what I mean? You haven't lost them because you buried the lead 5 paragraphs.
Give them the meat and potatoes up front and save
right
the dessert for later.
Exactly. So I think 500 words for like the full bio, and I think the full bio should kind of just be reserved for like your website. Like, this is your space that people are in, so go ahead and give them the full thing. Then like journalists and like whatever. But then I think it's also a really, really good idea to have like a 200 word bio, like a 30-second read bio. That kind of condenses all the stuff, takes out some of the details of the past would probably be the first thing that I would take out, and just focuses on the type of music you make, who you are, where you're at, and what you're working on now. And like 200 words can fit into that. Just something people can scan very quickly and get through. And then honestly, I also think it's a good idea to have like a social media length bio, like 50 words, like something you could put in an Instagram post if you wanted to, or something that like, if you wanted to make a TikTok, because, it's like when you make TikToks, there's a way of breaking up your content so that, 10 videos are for your current audience and then 1 is for like new people or whatever it is. So if you want to make one of those TikToks where like you're trying to introduce yourself to a new audience, then you can just do a very similar 50-word scripted, like, this is my name, this is where I'm at, this is the type of music I make, this is what I'm working on, follow along. Because a bio could be done in a video format as well as written. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Like the tiers, I think 500 is a comprehensive one, and then I think it's important to like break it into smaller things and like distill it further and further down, so that if you have 5 seconds of somebody's attention, or if you have 5 seconds of somebody standing in front of you, you know exactly what to say. And then if they want more, they direct them to your website and they can read more.
Right.
It's like a funnel. Like
yeah. So Spotify, and I think I think it's okay to talk about Spotify because that's where people go to music. I think the majority of people are listening there. So, so feel how you feel about Spotify. But so Spotify's bio has a word limit of 1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any reason somebody should have a 1,500 word bio on Spotify?
I think there are definitely reasons. I think that some artists can even give very good reasons. I think that at that point, it's like you better this better be really, really captivating. Like it just seems like a lot to me, because I mean, Jesus, 1,500 words, like that's like 5 minutes of reading. 5 to 10 minutes of reading, and like it's good if it's compelling enough and you can get people to read through the whole thing, it's going to be great. Like the more time you can get people to spend on your Spotify page, the better. But I don't know if I'd put a 1,500 word bio.
I got you. All right, so so we talked a little bit about letting people know in your bio what is upcoming. You had mentioned like let them know, hey, we were just in the studio, or we just came off of a 6-week tour. We're taking some time off. We're spending some time in the studio. Whatever the case is, you're letting them know what's going on. But you also want to give them some info on what's upcoming. What you're working on, to let people know that you're active. There's so much music that gets thrown on Spotify that an artist has 1 or 2 songs and then they're never heard from again.
Right.
But so letting them know what's going on. How often do you think bios need to be updated? And does the whole thing need to be updated? Can you just keep the meat and potatoes and just change out the dessert? I mean, what do you think about the frequency of keeping new information out there?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
I think one like good marker or like a good benchmark things to look at is like on a project basis. So like for me, the last single I released was God, what's it called? Feather and Hurricane. But actually the one you just played.
I just played it.
That's the last song that I released. And like that like kind of strange left turn of like 3 or 4 singles that I released last summer, which is like came out of nowhere and is a totally different type of music than I ever have made and like probably will ever make again. But like that came with its own little set of photos. It came with its own bio and everything. And like once I started to write different types of songs, I started to be like, I'm going to have to change all of this. So for me, like last month when I went through and was like going to update all the images and update the bio, I just started from scratch. So like when I was ready, or once I knew that a new project was starting to materialize, that's when I was like, it's time to update. Now like after Rose Smoking Flower Boy comes out, after the tour, the documentary ends up happening after that. Like after all that, I'm probably going to fucking hibernate for a little bit. But then when it comes time for the new project, then it might be a good idea to update and be like, just slightly update and leave the meat and potatoes and just be like, Michael is fresh off of this big project and this is what happened with the album and this is how the tour went and this is what Michael's working on now. But not a full update. And then once the next project is like really starting to materialize, that's probably when I would want to go back and like fully redo everything. So I think it's like at least how I see it, it seems like going by project is a good way to do it. But I also think that just every couple of months, like it doesn't hurt to go back and look at it and just be like, has any like small aspect of my vibe changed? Like have I got a new perspective that I could just kind of add or clarify with a few words or like one sentence? And doing that every couple months doesn't seem like a bad idea. So I think to like boil it down, I think at least once or twice a year, if you're working at any sort of moderate pace, I think once or twice a year, just little tweaks. And then as the projects come up, that's what I would do.
Awesome. Well, that's great. So fantastic information from Mr. Michael Witt here about artist bios. And I think we've covered the why, the how, and the the what here. So went a little bit over scheduled time, but that's okay. It's a new format. I just want to make sure we're getting the information and not rushing things. Sure. But before you go, I wanted to give you a few minutes here. One, so we talked a lot about artist bios. I know that this is something that you offer as a service. So if independent musicians need more help, you know, a lot of the same thing with my life in digital marketing is it's not rocket science. A lot of people could sit down and do what we do. But the fact is, sometimes you get into it and you realize I don't have time for this, or I'm not as good at this as I thought I was going to be. And so that's why you hire somebody to help you out with it. So that's a service that you offer. So I want you to, you know, let people know where they can find you and how to communicate if that's something that they want to, that they're interested in talking to you about. And then take a couple of minutes, let us know about the huge journey that you're about to start. And I know that you still need some help with the Kickstarter stuff, so I want to give you a little bit of a platform just to take a few minutes and cover that as well. So
sure,
I'll let you take that away.
Cool.
And let them know.
Yeah, I do offer my writing services as a freelancer. So if anybody is feeling like they need help, please reach out to me. The best way to reach out is by email, and my email is super easy. It is michaelwittmusic@gmail.com. So if you need help, just put it in the subject line, like bio writing, whatever, and then your name, and I'd be happy to help you out. Because I think you said it really well. Like, this is not rocket science.
Oops, come back.
Okay, there we go. Everybody could do this. It's really just about, like, you know, taking some time to think about really what type of artist you are and like the vibe that you want to communicate, whatever. So anybody could do it, but I also recognize that I have a particular aptitude for writing, and I'm also very perceptive. So like those things make it very easy for me to like interact with an artist and then try to kind of like capture their vibe and give them a product that can be very helpful for them. So yes, I do that as a service. Once again, it's michaelwittmusic@gmail.com. If you feel like you need some help with your bio, I would absolutely love to help. You need the full thing, or you just need some like little snippets. Like if you need help developing an elevator pitch, I'd love to help you do that. And then the project that the journey that I'm on right now is a really big one, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. So for those that don't know, I am releasing an album on June 21st, the day of the summer solstice. So it was going to be a magical time. It's an album called Rose Smoking Flower Boy. It is about it's not necessarily about, it's inspired by my recent move to Nashville and all of the like challenges and adventures and all the magic and the terrifying emotions that come up when you move away from home for the first time. I lost my childhood best friend right after I moved to Nashville, and that was the whole thing. So like, there's a lot of emotional meat in this album, but at the same time, it's also the most fun I've ever had doing anything. This is the best thing I've ever done in terms of things that I've created, in terms of work that I've put my hands on. This is the best, far and away the best. So like, I'm just like the most excited about this album coming out. I feel like for the first time, like I actually know what it feels like to be an artist. Like I feel like for the first time I know what it feels like to really be me, and it feels really fucking good. Like I feel very confident that I can keep the focus on the music because I believe in the music that much. Now after the album comes out later in the summer, I'm going to go on a house show tour, because if you're here on TikTok, you're obviously more than aware, you're a part of this community of people who are like talking about the way that we do things and talking about the way that the industry operates and the things that we don't like. And like a lot of us have recognized that there is something amiss, that there is like something that we want to be happening that is just not able to happen with the current way that we're trying to do things. And like, that's what the house show tour is going to be about, really, is just going and taking this TikTok experience, taking this community and bringing it into the physical, the real world. I don't like using the real world because I think that TikTok is just as freaking real. Like you're a human sitting here listening to me. There's a person on the other side of the screen. I just want to meet the people in real life, and I want to play music. Like I want to play good music with good people. And I think that it's going to end up being, honestly, for some, life-changing. I think it's going to be a life-changing experience for me. And I just think that we can have a really good freaking time, and we can just do things a little slower. We can do things in a way that isn't quite so high pressure. Like, I don't like going to shows and feeling like I've constantly just got to be in fucking salesman mode, just shaking hands, kissing babies, and like trying to say all the right things to the right industry people. I do not like doing that shit. It's a ridiculous expectation to put on myself. It's a role I don't enjoy playing, and so it's just like this house show tour is an experiment in just saying, fuck it, I don't want to do that, so let's not. Let's just, what do I want to do? I want to play music. Who do I want to play music for? Good people. Like, I want to hang out, and I want to share an organic experience, and like that's what the house show tour is about. Now the kind of like out of left field element of this project is that I'm going to bring a friend of mine named Aaron Payton in the bus with me, and he's a filmmaker, so he's going to film this tour. And kind of through the lens of my story with the album and our shared experience on the tour, we're going to tell the story of what is happening here, because there's definitely something unique happening here. Something about TikTok has made it a lot easier for us to get to know each other, and it's just like empowered people to just be more themselves, and I don't know what it is. And like, it'd be cool to explore like what people think it is about TikTok specifically, like, what about the platform? What about the app? What about the time that the app got big? Like, what are some of the things that makes it possible? But then I also just want to like hear from other people who are wanting something different, both creators and consumers of music and art. Like, what are music listeners missing? Because I feel like this system, I feel like this economic system and the industry that it exists in fails us both as creators and consumers of art, and we can do better. And that's what this whole project is. It's like an experiment in trying to do better, in trying to do things a different way. We have to, it's easy when we talk about big picture systems to get a little bit defeated, to just be like, oh man, this is like big systemic stuff. One person isn't going to do anything. I don't know what to do. We have no power. We have no agency. And that's obviously not true. And I think it's really important that, like, to the degree that we can, we start to make the changes in our day-to-day life, in our own social circles, that we can make. So like, we can build something better, but we have to actively build the world that we want to live in. And so that's what I'm trying to do. That's what we are trying to do. And honestly, like, I have kind of come to the realization lately, and this is not really the best sales pitch talk here, but like, if this Kickstarter doesn't work out, I'm not sweating it, because this is still happening. Like, my music is still going to get made. My story is still going to get told. And like, I can still hit the road. It's still going to happen. We might have to table the documentary for a little while. That's fine. Yeah.
But I love the idea of the documentary, man. I mean, I am a sucker for those Netflix documentaries that just give me a new perspective on life. And I actually started my journey as a minimalist because of Netflix documentaries and the journey. So I really hope, I would love to see something like that come out of it. But just to go ahead and wrap things up, and I know like you're so passionate about it, and I don't ever want to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
How can people support you so that you can go do that thing that you're like, if y'all can't tell that he's passionate about this, you're not watching and paying attention. Michael, it's all about, taking this industry, and that's part of what I'm trying to do here is we are creating a different wave in the music industry for independent artists, and it's us. It's not, we don't have to rely on other people, but
it's countercultural.
You do have to rely on some support though, right?
We have to rely on some support. Unfortunately, we still live in a society that uses money as the primary mover of transactions and making things happen. So if you do want to support, head over to the Kickstarter at the link in my bio and contribute what you can. We have until May 1st to reach a lofty goal. But I will let you know, if the Kickstarter doesn't work out, I'm still going to sell merch. Like, there will still be many ways. So just make sure that you're following me on TikTok, because I'm talking about this shit constantly.
And also letting us view the process. So you've been live for hours a day.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's been a
so
lot.
If anybody wants to see it actually happening, like, definitely follow Michael and pay attention to what's going on there. But you mentioned Kickstarter link is in your bio. If you want to go check it out and show some support, I think there is no minimum amount that you can pledge. But there are some cool stuff that you can get. You've got some tiers set up to get something out of it. People like to get something out of it, so you can still do that. But
yeah,
man, Michael, I definitely appreciate you coming on and again being my guinea pig and being the first featured resource giver here on Devin Song Reviews, which we may need I've been throwing around some ideas on some names, so we'll come up with something. But man, I truly appreciate having you on here, and I hope anybody watching this got something out of this, took some notes. This will be on YouTube. The replay will go on YouTube later in the week. So even if they weren't catching it here, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know where to find us on TikTok and all the things. Just check out Michael Witt.
Hit subscribe, hit like.
Do those things too, I guess. All right, Michael. Well,
thanks for having me, man. I'll talk soon.
Yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you later, man.
Y'all too.
Be good.